was the breaking point for this decision, you think?
Combination of the two. I mean, first of all, James Dolan is incredibly fond of Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony is somebody I still believe should get the hell up out of New York. Why he would want to stay is beyond me, but he loves being a New York Knick. He loves playing at Madison Square Garden. Phil Jackson was certainly entertaining the opportunities to buy him out because ultimately he just didn't want Carmelo Anthony there. He thought that you got to move in a different direction, and he wanted to buy Carmelo and his $54 million out of his contract. And James Dolan and the New York Knicks were obviously incredibly averse to that. That was definitely not a good thing. But when Porzingis spoke out against Phil Jackson, not just by virtue of refusing to show up to the exit interview, but also through his brother Giannis speaking out against Phil Jackson, talking about certain things, it was clear that Porzingis didn't want to play for Phil Jackson in New York City. This is a young budding star. He's 7'3" with a jump shot and athletic ability. His upside is tremendous. And Phil Jackson came out and was talking about, hey, we got to do what's good for the team. Now, according to my sources, he was never going to trade Porzingis. But keep in mind that when he was on the phones talking about and entertaining calls, rather, about trading Porzingis, my sources told me even the San Antonio Spurs picked up the phone and called the New York Knicks to inquire about what it would take to take Porzingis. So Phil may have just been using Porzingis and trying to find out what his value would be in the open market, but it doesn't negate the fact that the manner in which he spoke about Porzingis, combined with how he treated Carmelo Anthony throughout this season, and we've never seen a star treated so disrespectfully as Carmelo Anthony was treated throughout this entire season. All of those things ultimately soured James Dolan on the situation at hand, and he finally came to his senses and did what he should have done months ago, to be quite honest with you, because remember, just months ago, he picked up the 2-year option on Phil Jackson's contract, which was as idiotic as you can be.
Advice for Anthony.
I think Carmelo should ask for a trade. You know, he's getting older.
So he should approve the trade.
Yes, but he's in a great situation. He gets to approve the trade. But you don't want to finish your last couple of years playing on a bad team. I'm surprised he hasn't did it by now. I mean, listen, Carmelo's a terrific player, but why would you want to finish your career on a bad team? That doesn't make any sense.
All right, with much more on the future of Melo, let's bring back our NBA insider, Jeff Goodman. All right, all that front office change in front of him. What does the future hold for Melo? You have that no trade clause, and he has a couple of years left.
You know, Barkley's right. Certainly you don't want to finish your career on a bad team, but Carmelo does like it in New York. I talked to somebody close to him. He'd like to stay there. He's got his son there. And again, he's comfortable there, but they're going to have to repair what's been a fractured relationship with Carmelo with whoever takes over the Knicks. Right now, it's interim GM Steve Mills, but they're likely going to bring somebody else in there, whether it's a guy like Masai Ujiri, who's now with the Toronto Raptors, whether it's David Griffin, who's a free agent after being let go by the Cleveland Cavs. Somebody's going to have to figure out that relationship with Carmelo. And obviously now you've got Carmelo Anthony, Porzingis. You just drafted a kid in Frank Ntilikina, who's young. He's 18 years old, a French point guard. It's going to take time. So the Knicks aren't going to be very good anytime soon. But can they start to get better where Carmelo is playing for a team that at least is competing for the playoffs?
Jeff, we have some other news this morning. The Rockets emerging as a potential landing spot for Chris Paul. That's according to our Mark Stein. What are you hearing about that situation?
You know, there are plenty of teams that obviously would love Chris Paul, the Rockets being one of them. Daryl Morey, their general manager, will be active, as he always is, in trying to land big names. Imagine the combo, the duo of Chris Paul and James Harden. And Chris Paul wants to go somewhere that he can win an NBA title. I mean, this is a guy who's been in the league 12 years who hasn't gotten to the NBA Finals. So can he do it in L.A. with the Clippers? We'll see what happens with Blake Griffin, whether he stays there, but certainly they haven't done it thus far in CP3's time. So can he go somewhere else, whether it's Houston, whether it's San Antonio, that he feels like he can win a title, because that's the thing that really he's been longing for and unable to get in his illustrious NBA career.
All right, Jeff Goodman with the very latest. Jeff, we appreciate you. Thank you.
All this is, we're still 3 days away from free agency.
Yeah, right? Cannot wait. Still to come on SportsCenter AM 932.
a.m. Our Knicks reporter joining us live to discuss when the breaking point occurred in the relationship between the Knicks, the owner, and Phil Jackson. At 9:40 Eastern, Pedro Gomez sat down with the Dodgers rookie, the superstar who's ringing the bell for National League Rookie of the Year, turning that franchise around this season. Right now, it's 9:16 Wednesday morning. Thanks for waking up with us.
You guys are ready! You guys are ready!
Phil Jackson will officially be back with the team as the Knicks president.
I have no problems with committing to saying Carmelo is in the future plan.
We may be getting to a point with the losing to where Carmelo may consider waiving that no-trade clause.
The drama is the gossip. The drama is the rumor.
Phil essentially said to him, do you want to stay a Knick?
I don't think Carmelo wants to give Phil Jackson the satisfaction of running him out of town.
What I talked to Melo about, we've not been able to win with him on the court at this time. He is a player that would be better off somewhere else.
As much as we value Kristaps and, what he's done for us, as much as we love this guy, we have to do what's good for our club.
It's Phil Jackson we're talking about here, this novice executive who continues to show us all why he needs to get the hell out of New York quick, fast, and in a hurry.
I don't think he was trying to get himself fired. I just think Phil Jackson and the Knicks could not see a future where all of them were back in that sort of toxic triangle we've been in.
This is our big story of the morning, Phil Jackson. These are the big numbers surrounding Phil and the current state of the Knicks. During his time in charge of the Knicks draft, he selected no college players from the freshman, sophomore, or junior class. The Knicks, the only team who could say that during that stretch. And as for the veterans that he acquired, there were some ugly contracts, as in almost $56 million out of a $99 million cap committed to Carmelo Anthony, Joakim Noah, and Courtney Lee next season. And as he departs, Knicks fans are left with a team that still has won just a single playoff series since the 2000-2001 season. And for more now on the current state of the Knicks, we bring in ESPN reporter Ian Begley. And Ian, before we get to that, what was that apparent breaking point between Phil Jackson and James Dolan as you understand it?
Lindsay, really all season, people around James Dolan were pushing him to make a change with Phil Jackson, pushing him to bring someone else to steer the Knicks forward. And Jim really didn't listen to those guys for much of the season, but he became more frustrated as things played out in public between Phil Jackson and Carmelo Anthony. And his frustration grew as things played out in public between Phil Jackson and Kristaps Porzingis. And according to our Ramona Shelburne, the breaking point was actually buyout talks surrounding Carmelo Anthony. Phil Jackson, according to Ramona, wanted to offer Carmelo a buyout to get him off the roster, to push the team forward as he saw fit. James Dolan said that was not an option, and both men apparently saw no way forward together and decided to part ways.
Ian, we were talking during the break. You said Phil and his guys actually had a plan moving forward for this team. Could you detail that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a couple people who spoke to the front office as recently as 3 days ago, and the Knicks front office was saying, hey, we know what we want to do going forward here. We have a distinct plan, a distinct vision. Phil wants to implement his system, wants to bring in young players who will buy into the system, wants to find two-way veterans on the cheap in free agency who can help play the way that he wants to play, wants to get Carmelo out of here. But interestingly, people with the Knicks under Phil were telling these people that they were concerned that they wouldn't have enough time to implement this vision. Now, I think they meant it couldn't be done in 2 years. I don't think they had any idea that a firing was coming as early as this morning.
So with all of that information, then, where do the Knicks start? What does it look like right now?
Well, you start with trying to mend fences with Kristaps Porzingis, and you start with trying to figure out exactly what you want to do with Carmelo Anthony, and then you move into free agency. Steve Mills is running the show at the moment. I would expect Jim Dolan to at least have discussions with other executives to come in and replace Phil Jackson. But for Steve right now, I think it's imperative to figure out what happens with Carmelo. I know he and Carmelo have a pretty good relationship over the course of Carmelo's years in New York, but I also know that Steve, under Phil Jackson, believed that the best way forward for this club was to get Carmelo off the roster. Does Steve now, as an independent thinker outside of Phil Jackson, feel differently about Carmelo? That's something I'm sure we'll find out in the coming days here.
Is there any scenario you can see where Carmelo would want to be elsewhere?
I think if a trade to Cleveland is on the table or a buyout sending him to Cleveland is on the table, I would think that's something that he would think long and hard about because it gives him a chance to pursue an NBA title alongside his good friend LeBron James. But as his estranged wife Lala pointed out yesterday, his priority and Lala's priority is for Carmelo to remain close to his son, Cayenne. So is Cleveland close enough? I'm not sure, but I think that would factor into any decision for Carmelo when he thinks about his future.
Yeah, we will see. Knicks and Phil Jackson parting ways this morning. Ian Begley with the latest. Thank you, Ian. We appreciate you.